Good morning, this is Talking Devils. I'm your host, Wayne Barton, joined by Manchester United legend Paul Parker to talk over Manchester United 4, Brighton 2. Good grief, United winning at Old Trafford against Brighton. Things must be going well. How are you doing, Paul? Are you good?
I'm good, thank you very much.
Good
Not
stuff. What did you get up to at the weekend?
really not. What was I? Well, obviously I was working on the United game at the weekends, and then yesterday I was at Arsenal yesterday. I got invited by somebody in the prawn sandwich seats to go and watch Arsenal play, which is hard work. Let's put it that way. Yeah, I started on a
Even in the
negative.
nice seats.
Sorry.
Even in the nice seats.
Oh, I mean, it was nice, and everything else around it was very nice. Internally, it's a lovely stadium, lovely. But to go there and to sit, it's a really good, proper football stadium to watch a game that tear up. But wow, when you got Arsenal fans 5 minutes from the end shouting, get it away," they were panicking, and I was. I'm not seeing. Yeah, you look at the way the league is at the moment. You think the way they've built themselves, that they look the most capable to win it, but it isn't going to be good on the eyes. Let's put it
No.
that way. So they're not a football team in that way. Palace could have got a point if they showed a little bit more drive up front, as they have done for most of the season. The goal they conceded was from a free kick, and it was a needless foul by Pino. Needless foul,
Yeah.
petulance it was, and it cost them in the end.
Yeah, typical Arsenal winning on a set
Mm.
piece. Like I said, the difference is probably the player that moved sides over the summer. They could have quite turned the game in the other way. But yeah, it is right. I mean, it is harking back to the old Arsenal games. But even the George Graham side, I mean, they were pragmatic. The side that you nearly joined, the
Mm.
boring Arsenal one. But they were never quite. I don't. It's so strange to see a team that's got so many good attacking footballers and add another one, like or another couple this summer, and yet just not play to any of the strengths, not play to any of the creativity, and play in this kind of way. And I mean, look, I will say credit where it's due. If anyone was criticising Arsenal over the previous 5 years before Arteta started getting it better over there, it was that they didn't have the backbone that they've got now. They didn't have the resilience. But sometimes you can go too far the other way. It's a lot easier to. You've said it so many times. It's a lot easier to stifle a game of football than it is to go out and play and attacking to try and win
Yeah.
ambitiously. Mourinho and Benitez proved that. And I mean, no one enjoyed that football, did they? I can't imagine that was a bad era for British football. That sort of Mourinho Benitez thing, and it was like I can remember when Ancelotti went to Chelsea with the same sort of backbone that he had with that Chelsea team, and then made them entertaining. You know what I mean? There was that period like half a season where they were scoring like 6 and 7 all the time, and Arsenal. I'm not saying Arsenal got the capability to win games 6 and 7 now. They got the capability to be more entertaining than this, and it just tells you everything about like how straightforward this league should be to win with a consistent team, and B the sort of lack of quality that's there when you've got quality in your side to not play like that. I don't know. I mean, I'm far from an Arsenal fan, and I don't want them to win the league, but at the moment, over Liverpool and City, probably the I say that now, knowing Arsenal fans would be completely unbearable if they win. By the way, on the topic, before we start talking about United, I know we realise we've gone 4 minutes about talking about Arsenal. I don't know if this missed your radar last week, Paul. But you upset an Arsenal fan. You know that Arsenal fan TV? There was the guy who goes on there and he's always dressed. He's like, it might be around your age, but he's dressed like a toddler. Like he wears all the club gear, like the hat, water bottle, scarf, and everything like that. And the title, I was just checking the promo for the book, and one of their videos came up, and it was Paul Parker is a disgrace. And I think,
Oh,
yeah, I think, yeah, I think what you've done is you maybe said something about the way that Gyökeres ran with the ball or ran off the ball, his running style, and this guy like he wasn't happy with it. He so much so they stopped what he was talking about to literally just talk about your comments. I don't know if you even remember saying it. It was on. You must have been doing Talksport comms, he'd heard it and he wasn't very happy with you. So yeah.
No, they're easily upset at this moment in time about anything because they think they've got a divine right. Even walking from the station to meet up with the people at the ground, one of their must have been their fan TV people was walking down the Holloway Road. You know, we're talking. So I must have been must have been talking about midday, and he's walking down Holloway Road with his microphone. And do you remember the scene from Only Fools and Horses when Del Boy was walking along when he had his Filofax in his hand? He was walking along like that, and he was just like walking along, like, look at me with my microphone. And everyone was just looking at, and everyone goes, "Oh, are you?" And he was getting everything he wanted. And when he was talking, he was loud and, "Oh, we're going to do this." And I was just the other side of the road, just cringing. It was embarrassing,
Yeah.
absolutely embarrassing. So he must be involved with him because he was definitely, you know, a fan TV person, and we know that fan TV is not liked by anyone, even their own fans. Majority they don't like it. They don't want anything to do with it because it's, I call it disgusting
It's
what they do.
been around like a decade now, and yeah, it's a part of it, like a period of its evolution. I mean, now it's part of football, right? It's part of football media somehow. It's got its way in. There's a part of that evolution where it's a lot about exploitation of just normal people, like the normal working. I said working class. It doesn't really matter if you've got 50,000 people going to a football match, and you ask them all to queue up on a microphone. The chances are you're going to get people who say silly things, and like those silly things will get exploited for views. But I mean, they're not there to be media personalities, so you're using them. And, we've seen all kinds of things like people taking their own life and stuff like that based on stuff like that. So anyway, less said about that, the better. Don't want Arsenal. I want Arsenal to win the league out of the others. Having said that, no, let's be a little bit optimistic because United. They're not, when you look at the table, they're currently above last season's champions. I'm not going to say that they're title contenders, but they're not a million miles away. And in this league, we've gone from looking at saying the manager's going to get sacked somewhere in the middle of another transition to now saying, do you know what? The Champions League spaces are quite open. And, we've played Brighton. They've won the last 3 games to Old Trafford. And they've been on a good run themselves lately. They've been playing some good football. Never quite sure early in the season which Brighton you're going to get. That sort of like very vibrant, fast-moving Brighton or a different transitional side. And I feel like we got one of those on the weekend. But I'm not going to sit here and sort of like detract from Brighton because I think they've been on a good run. And I think if you look at Sunderland and you go, all right, well, we played Sunderland, promoted team. And by the way, Sunderland result is looking better by the week. I mean, I remember in the build-up for that, you were saying you wouldn't be surprised if Sunderland came to Old Trafford and won. I think maybe only Sunderland's naivety of thinking United were worse than what they are is what cost them, because when they changed their formation, they actually got when they were more pragmatic and when they were more, I don't know what the word is, but when they were more at it for that last hour of the game, they looked our equal, to be fair. Well, they reacted too slow to what we were doing at the start. We'd already won the game by then. So there was that. And then the Liverpool game, we scored early on, and we've always said, it's a big game. It brings different things out of the players. And to be fair to Ruben Amorim, he's got a good record in those big games. So it was always, look at the Brighton game. Let's see if the Brighton game now is going to be the test of this team. And I think so we have to evaluate it. I feel like, I don't think there's anything that happened to Brighton that you say was so bad that you can't evaluate it fairly. So you look at United, you say, all right, well, they were really good in the first half. They won. They went 3-0 up, and they deserved to be 3-0 up at that point. Okay, well, a couple of moments in the game where I think Ruben Amorim made the changes, and I think we'll talk about the changes a little bit later on and how they changed the momentum of the game. And he did slip away for a little bit, but then he changed back and tried to add a little bit more pragmatism. And there was a dodgy refereeing decision on both sides. Brighton might have felt a little bit aggrieved that Dogu wasn't sent off. United fans might be aggrieved that it was a foul at all. Everyone's got to be perplexed by the fact that was moved 10 yards forward. And Welbeck, to be fair, scores a great goal. Brighton are back in it. United, in the past, you could see a position where that last 5 minutes of injury time, they conceded another goal. They did it down at Chelsea, didn't they, where they were just like conceding goals for fun, where Cole Palmer had the run of him. So United showed good resilience to get through the end of that game. Um, I think that's what I want to concentrate on, Paul. First of all, I mean, we'll talk about the changes and the way that they impacted the game. But first of all, especially that first hour, you're looking at a conclusive sign of something that felt good. You're saying, all right, Ruben Amorim, this is a test now. You've won 2 games in a row, but this is one where you've got to stop a bit of a rot against Brighton, who've come to Old Trafford. Like we were saying last week, they've come to Old Trafford and played very well. So you've got to really put up a good performance. And United for that first hour were really, really the best that we've seen in Old Trafford for a long time.
Yeah, there was. There was definitely a flow to it. Again, the difference is it's got 2 players in the side who run.
Yeah.
And Bueno and Cunha, they run. They run with and without the ball, and they do both of them equally well. Cunha's got his goal now. Never seen anyone look so pleased. You could just see he was emotional when he scored. It was absolutely incredible. Just his face, that moment was something. And then you've got Mbueno as well, who can make goals, and he scored 2. But it's what he does. He's a constant threat all the time. So it was a really, really, I would say if you're looking at Old Trafford, you would look at that for that hour or more than an hour. You would look at it and say that was as good as it was against Arsenal at the start of the first game of the season in that way, where they played well and they should have got something out of the game. Not saying a win, but should never have lost a game. And I think we can look at that. That was down, costed. We have to say the goalkeeper cost the game, that one. It could have been more of a dead ball situation because he was so nervy. And then you think everything's going to be fine after that first game. Then it doesn't. It goes backwards. And then all of a sudden, you make a change. You get someone in goal, breeds a bit of confidence around the side. And then all of a sudden, you hit a 3-game run.
Yeah.
And then you dig deep and you get a great result away from home. When you come home looking against a side that have had something over you for a few years, and bang, you get what you deserve. You get yourself in a position where you ask the question, how did that happen over those last few years? But the back end of it is that you do worry in the sense of the substitutions.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest concern.
We'll get onto that, but let's talk about the quality of the goals as well. Cunha's goal, it was a nice little move beforehand, really quick movement. And Bumo's first goal was beautifully done as well, like Solskjaer kind of shot, wasn't it? Finding the legs of the defender and putting it through. And then the last goal, I think Evan actually played the ball through, and Bruno did a nice sort of dummy over it to give that space for Mbumo to finish as well as he did. I mean, I want to talk about Mbumo a little bit later on, but the quality of those goals was sort of, sometimes you see a game and you go like, maybe the Chelsea game's a good example. It was a bit scruffy, but United probably deserved the lead that they had. But this was a game where everything was slick. No, not everything was slick, but the goals were really slick, and that's really promising. It's a really sort of strong indication that attacking system is starting to click.
Yeah, I mean, people are now seeing something that they've been wanting to see for quite a while. They're seeing movement off the ball, and like use that word slick. They're just seeing something which is they relate to Manchester United.
Yeah.
And now there's 2 players up top where people, when the ball gets into them, people shuffle in their seat because they just think that something's going to happen. That hasn't happened enough since 2013 with players. When players are coming, when you get yourself hyped up for them, and then they let you down. But this way around, you've got 2 players who made it obvious to everyone, and people didn't want to accept it. Wanted to turn around and say it was all about money. They both wanted to play for Manchester United, and they could have gone anywhere. Cunha made his mind up very early, and then Bueno was, you've seen it all, that they tried to get him, Brentford, to go to Tottenham.
Yeah.
Brentford wanted him to go with their old manager. That's what they thought with their manager. They wanted him. Now, we know the difference he would have made to Tottenham. You can see that now, but he didn't want that. For where he's from, for playing for Manchester United, when he goes home, he's seen as a god. And he's gone with that way, and he knows about the success with Manchester United. It's unmatched, totally unmatched by any other club. If he could become a success there, and the team is successful as well. So, and just by the way he plays, and it's just 1 minute you think he's all out, then all of a sudden he just springs up and bong, he's off again. He's off and running. All on that, all off that left foot. He does everything, but his manipulation of the ball is absolutely incredible. And Cunha, you just wonder, when does that man get tired? When he look, another one looks like when he's blowing, he'll go and run again. He doesn't stop. Sometimes you want to grab hold of him and just say, stand still, get your position right. But he just won't stop. I mean, how many times did I see him chasing back into the box, to make a challenge? He nearly did that at the end, and I thought to myself, please don't dive in, because he was the wrong side as well. But he made the run back, but he had the good sense not to put a challenge in. Someone else come across and done that, but you look at it and they've made a massive difference. And as we know, that was a weakness for quite a few seasons. But those two signings have been incredible.
Yeah.
But I like Sesko as well.
Yeah.
I have seen that somebody mentioned and questioned him. But when I was working on a game, I talked about that. Yeah, it's going to take a bit of time, but you've got someone you can play the ball into, and technically, he's very good with the ball. He
Yeah.
maybe needs not so many touches, but you can just see he's just getting used to it and into it. But he's somebody to play off, and but he's going to find the ball. When we talk about Højlund, he wasn't always going to find it,
Yeah.
and we will say as well that he was let down by because they weren't giving the ball to him. But Sesko, he moves about. He's more mobile. He's more easy on the eye because he runs. He's running. He runs on top of the grass rather than look like he's dragging a combine harvester behind him. So the front three did really well and they caused the problem, and that takes the pressure off
Yeah.
the midfield and the back back three, I should say as well.
Yeah, it's funny because you look at previous seasons, and I don't, no point criticizing players who aren't here anymore. But you mentioned Højlund, and people talked about the service that went into him or didn't go into him. People talk about Garnacho and Rashford and Anthony even, and how they've done well after they moved. Well, how Rashford and Anthony have done well since they moved away from United and everything. But then when you look at what they were doing and what they couldn't do. Yeah, no one's denying that they had talent, but they didn't do enough. They didn't do enough attacking in terms of being functional. They didn't do enough defensively, and you can see the differences night and day with the three players that we brought in. Like you said, even Sesko, all right, the quietest of the three on Saturday, but there was enough in his link-up play. I think there's something there in what you said about too many touches. Maybe that's a little bit. There's an element there of being new to the Premier League and a little bit of anxiety in there. But I think when you see the economy of Cunha and Mbeumo, I think that will come. It will naturally fall for him. That like in a year or two, those three touches might just become one, or might just become two, where he's incisive with the second one. Hopefully, anyway. And he saw good signs of it because he did link up well for one of the goals on the weekend. A couple of comments in from JSC. He says, excellent. We were excellent until Brighton scored. We'll come on to this in a second. We had our backs to the wall when they came at us. Agreed that the substitutions didn't help, but the fourth goal settled us down. And Bumo was also being chased by Newcastle. Honestly, they're also on good form. So let's take what I'm about to say into consideration with that, saying that I'm saying it when they're playing well. At this moment in time, you could say they play for any team in the country and improve them. That's how good they are. That's how good they've been for United. Like Paul said, transformational for United, because without them, there's no point even saying that, because you can just see the difference that they made. They've elevated United to a different kind of level and really done the manager a favour. Sometimes, he doesn't do himself favours. I think on Saturday, when the game was 3-0, I did feel, and I will say this, I bet everyone in the ground, sometimes you go like, oh, you shouldn't do that. Like everyone's a manager. Every one of those 60,000 fans is a manager that's saying, do this, bring this player on, bring that player on. When it was 2-0, I was like, oh, I hope he gets to 3-0. I hope we get that rare opportunity to go 3-0 up. Then he'll probably bring Cobby on and probably give Aiden Evan a run out. And that's exactly what we saw. But he broke Cobby on for Casemiro, which I felt probably not the best move. You're asking Cobby to do things that is not natural for him. But a good chance to test it at 3-0 and brought Evan on for sure. And I don't know. Brighton had a couple of good runners on the ball. Their number 10, who I'd not seen before, was just such a good dribbler. It was just the way that he moved. All right, his end product wasn't great, but the way that he was moving with the ball was unbelievable. Brighton are good like that. I think we were kind of lucky that Belieber had a bit of a quiet game because Bruno and Casemiro were able to get about him. But then when we made the change in midfield and it was Kobe and Bruno, it just didn't work really. And I think within, it was 10 minutes, wasn't it? I think Kobe came on the 70th, and then within about 5 minutes, it was obvious that that was turning the tide for us. And it was a little bit of that bad decision from the referee again, moving the ball forward. I mean, I don't know what to talk about first. Let's talk about the decision, because obviously we talk about the substitutions, but we'll talk about the decision. Taylor was poor throughout the game. There's at least one penalty he could have given in the first half. There were two big shouts in there, but one big one on Ahmad. But it wasn't just the penalty decisions. His decisions afterwards, he was just like constantly stopping the game for weird stuff. He was giving decisions the other way, and wrongly for Brighton as well, because in the third goal, Luke Shaw pulls someone, and this one could have been a sending off for Dogu, and then they moved the ball forward 10 yards. Like, the ball is miles out of position from when Welbeck actually strikes it. We'll talk about the subs. What did you make of Taylor? Because obviously he makes that decision, and by not having the free kick in the right place, that's really the actual moment where Brighton come back into the game.
Well, I wonder what the people in the broom cupboard at Heathrow were doing for something like that. They talk about everything. I mean, we know that the referees are being refereed by other people. Sometimes they give. I mean, I watch them and they give fouls and they haven't seen it, and you can see within a second of that happening and the place seems to move on, they blow their whistle because they're being told. Maybe the fourth official helps them as well. I just, and if we ask that question, they would deny it, but it happens. So I thought someone would have told him. He should have seen it. He was refereeing the game very, what's what I'm looking for? Arrogantly.
Yeah.
Everything. That's the way I saw him. His whole persona was just so arrogant. Everything about it. And you've seen a lot of some of the referees. They're very dramatic of everything. Just the way he was. It was kind of no, don't worry about me. It's about him. Virtually, I felt like he wanted to go outside and sign autographs or something like that. He was just above himself, to be perfectly honest, the way he refereed that game. And he could have made it quite nasty in certain ways by the way he was performing. Again, he could have lost the game if there was if it could have been if it had been a more rival team at playing against, and the game was a little bit more ferocious. He could have caused a problem by the way he refereed it. But the decision, and I don't know how to jump to it, Ahmad's penalty, and every time I keep seeing it, and the lad who put his leg out, I think it was the Kuiper, I think it was. I mean, it's the kind of thing you do in training. Just when someone you kind of mucking about and someone kind of dribble past you, and you've gone the wrong way. So what you do is you stick your back leg out, hoping that you might be able to get the ball, and that's what it does. It's totally lazy, and it is so training ground, and it's a penalty, and the whole thing. And you think to yourself, well, why haven't VAR got involved? And someone will come out and want to say to me, oh, because of this ruling, that ruling, but it's obvious that the lad has defended lazily, and Ahmed hasn't gone down just off the back of that, like seen a leg and gone out. The lad has taken him down. He's got caught unexpectedly, and so it all bounced off of there. Really, after that, that's when it started going downhill for him. Really, with some of his decisions.
It's a strange one because he's like, referees like that tend to they double down, don't they? And it's like it's almost like a switch flicks in their head, and they go like, I'm just gonna make unpopular decisions from this moment in time. It doesn't really, and it's such a strange way to, like I said, this generation of referees, and Mike Dean probably introduced it. Maybe even Jeff Winter. I think get on Jeff well with Jeff actually when I've talked to him, but Jeff and Mike were really performative referees, and referees on. There was the guy, wasn't there? I can't remember his name, but there was the famous Cliff something or other who used Clive Thomas. Was it Clive Thomas, the one in the 70s and 80s?
Oh, the one who done disallowed the goal for Brazil, against Sweden.
The guy, and he was very sort of performative, and I think like that's maybe that this generation of referees have grown up watching that kind of thing, saying, "Oh, I can be a star too." Job's not there, and like you said, you run the risk when you're not in control of a game in that way of either a player getting injured or causing grief in the sort of scenario. Like, I don't know how to best describe that, but irritate a crowd or if you're doing something to inflame a crowd rather than just officiating the game, that's all you're winding up the players and everything like that. I just felt like there was too much of that, and I'm not bothered about whether or not it was for or against United because, like I said, there were a couple of decisions that went our way as well. So I think it evened out overall. What did you make of the Dogu incident? I look at it. By the way, you've explained the Ahmad one to me. I've not seen that back, and the reason why I've not seen that back, it looked clear to me in the ground. I thought, how was that not a penalty? But on all the highlights packages, I've not watched the full game back. I've watched the extended highlights, but everything else doesn't show that incident. Maybe because there was a few goals in there. Maybe you know what I mean. There was a couple of other incidents, and they've just not deemed that a significant one. Maybe because United won. I don't know. But what did you make of the Dogu one? Because to me, I can't tell if I think it's a foul or if it's a straight red. He's got to be one or the other, right? I can't understand.
Yeah, I would say looking at it, it's a straight red.
Yeah,
Again, it was Cunha who was on the right hand side, the left hand side of Dorgu.
yeah,
So he's the one, he's there, but he was still, I would say about 3 4 feet, no, about 3 feet behind.
yeah,
Behind in that sense, yes, he's quick, but I still see that as a red.
yeah,
I mean, I don't understand. I mean, I'm just there. But in fact, if that's the other way, you'd be screaming for a red card, and
yeah,
everyone would want a red. It was a red, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I'm just surprised that he never got called to go and have a look at it. If
yeah,
you're looking at something, and you're virtually saying that we all saw it when it looked clear, and it looked clear that it was a foul, and he was the last man, and it absolutely looked, it just looked obvious that it's well, it was. So it's clear. So he should have gone and looked at it, the referee. And I think if he'd have looked at it, he would have had to give him a red card. It was as simple as that. He's just got caught out Dorgu by not being awake. He was still on the touchline going through a mediocre warm up because he wasn't prepared for it. The ball that he gives, what he decides to give it is a poor ball. It was a poor choice. And then they've nicked the ball and they've gone in behind him, and he isn't quick, he isn't sharp enough to deal with it, and he was totally caught wrong, caught in his heels, and for me it's a sending off. Someone can tell me any different the reason why, but the margins must be so minimal, and we know that at the end of the day that margin is going to be something that's going to people are going to question, and I'm seeing that one there that's saying it. I think I look at it and I still think it still doesn't make sense to me. If anything, that should be explained now so everyone understands it. So if something like that happens again in another game, we all know we've got to look for the person to be in control of the ball. Were they saying that one then with Ahmad's one as well? Was Ahmad in control of the ball? Not in control of the ball. Is that why he never gave the penalty?
yeah.
Because we're seeing people get kicked in the box. They throw themselves to the floor because the person's gone for the ball. He's kind of won the ball, kicked the player, and they're still giving penalties.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. Like I said, for me, I thought it was a red card. I still can't get my head around moving it forward 10 yards. That's a
Mm.
very, very terrible decision from, they should have pulled that one back as well. But I mean, that's the decision, really. I mean, they could argue that a red card would have turned the game completely in their favour. But like, say if they got a red card and they'd had the free kick in the proper position, maybe United would have just settled down very quickly and saw the game out 3-0. Have gone even more pragmatic as they did with the changes. Before we talk about changes, because JS has asked about it, I did allude to this earlier, but I do want to talk about it. Yeah, as I was talking about the great goals, Bruno's dummy for the last goal, very good, wasn't he? I mean, great awareness. I think Bruno he almost acts as a shield the way that he runs across because he sees Mbumo's run, so he gets across into Aiden Evans' path of the ball. Evan plays the ball. Bruno, his dummy's excellent because it takes the defender out and it gives Mbumo loads of space. And I mean, we don't credit Bruno enough for that sort of stuff. And maybe we don't do that because the intelligence of the players around him hasn't been as high as it is with what he's currently got with Mbumo and Cunha. So, yeah, really nice bit of football that for the fourth goal as well.
It was. I mean, if he decides to take that ball, I think there was a good chance that he might have been, when he had a player right close, there's a good chance that he would have been closed down and Brighton would have been on the attack again. But he lets it go, and all of a sudden, young Heaven has got an assist, isn't he?
Yeah,
Even and when all of a sudden maybe in the next few years to come, we're going to suddenly there's going to be another thing coming up, another bit of stupid football jargon about the no touch assist or something. Everyone be trying to claim them. If you haven't got 10 of them a season, then you're not a very good midfield player, something like that. Look at his numbers. No, don't bother about watching the 90 minutes of football he's played. Just look at his numbers. That would tell you how good he is. But
yeah,
it was just something, and something like that is, in a way, it's uncoachable. It's
yeah,
something that natural footballers have.
yeah,
Let's put it that way. Managers can't coach it so and so. Just let it run. No, it's something instinctive. Where, to remember, football at this moment in time, it seems like players being instinctive they're trying to actually quash it in
yeah,
certain ways. And someone like Bruno is a little bit of a maverick in what he does, or maybe a little bit more than a little bit. But
yeah,
those players are a bit of a dying breed, to be perfectly honest. So when you see something like that, everyone kind of goes, wow. And it's a big story when, I would say, when I was playing and when I was playing and maybe 10 years after, that was that was 10 a penny, all that
yeah.
kind of stuff. Player was just, every player, if you didn't have that about your game, being instinctive or making your own decisions, you was never going to be a footballer. Managers didn't want you. But
Mm.
nowadays, managers want you to listen to them and do what they say. So football has changed that way. But people
Yeah.
like Bruno are the ones that, at the end of it, people pay money to watch.
No, yeah, absolutely. I think I know what you're saying, and I think like the first play that came to mind with that is not really like a Cantona or someone. It was like Sheringham used to do stuff like that, and people don't rate him as like he wouldn't even get in the top 10, maybe not even top 20 of United strikers of all time in most people's opinion. But he was very good at doing stuff like that, and there's probably plenty of goals in United Premier League history that he was so good. He was. So good. We'll go quiet. I think this is a bit of an overstretch here, but Nishan says Cunha, Mbumo, and Bruno make my all-time United 11. They're that good. No, but the way that I was going off about Cunha last week, maybe it won't be too long before I'm putting him in. I don't think so, but he's brilliant, and they were all brilliant at the weekend. I thought Mbumo absolutely fantastic, man of the match. Some of his first touches, there was one where he plucked it out of the air and just velvet first touch. Honestly, unbelievable. All right, so we'll talk about the one negative thing from the weekend, and it was the substitutes made when it was 3-0. You thought, all right, I can understand Paul why he made it, so I'm not actually going to criticise him too much for it. And I actually think sometimes you make a change like that, and it's what you do in reaction. And he did react well. He brought on Ugarte. I wouldn't normally call for Ugarte to come on, but in that scenario, yes, because you need to tighten the game up. So he did what he needed to do, and we got over the line. So, and I think Heaven struggled a little bit in open play. I think Brighton targeted him a little bit, and maybe even Dogu as well, because I thought Dallo played all right. So I think the starting 11. Sometimes when you're playing one match a week, it's not necessary to make substitutions all the time. I don't know if this was a moment where it was just like the manager thought, "I've got to make a substitution," and he did. And maybe that is a part of our problem. Like we clamour for players. I'm part of that. I wanted Cobby to play, so I wanted Cobby to come on. I wanted Evan to come on, and we saw why they shouldn't have come on. And that's the manager sorted it out pretty quickly enough that it probably stemmed the tide a little bit, even though obviously they scored a goal after that. But I think like the general flow of it stemmed a little bit more in a good balance for United instead of going one way. What did you make of that? Because I mean, it's obvious that the substitutions changed the game from United having complete control of it and playing as well as they were to letting Brighton back into it. But do you have a little bit of sympathy there? Because we have talked about those players before, like they should get more of a chance.
Yes, you should do. But so you said something exactly what I was thinking, and I think I said it as well on the radio. I didn't like these substitutions. It's not about the players. It's just the team were in a really good place. He hasn't been in that position as a Manchester United manager,
Yeah,
and it was that time where everybody, again, I have to talk about when I was playing in that era. When you're something like that, and you're not the game's still there's something still there, and they're getting a little bit. But what you do is you've got everyone who's been doing it, so you leave them there. You don't go and make that. You don't force that change unless
Yeah,
it's necessary. And it seems like now, and he's not the only one who I think does it. Is that managers now they've already got it because I sit there sometimes and before saying they say, oh, someone say Manchester's not going to make a substitution, say. And I say, and the commentator, and I look at him, and he waits for me because he knows that I'm going to write down and take guesses at who's going to come off. And every manager, there's always four guys, the ones who come off. You know they are from most teams, and I always have this little thing with the people I'm working with, who they're going to take off. And and I just looked and I just thought to myself, why are you doing it for? The team's just there, and I said, and Brighton's substitutions, they only had to be one way. They had to be positive ones just to try and get something out of it. And Brighton's substitutes were a lot better. And I just think he's got in his mind already, he has it written down where he's going to make his swaps because everything's always the same where he makes
yeah,
his changes, always the same and predictable. And I think even teams now are seeing into what he's going to do. They're looking what he's got and they know what he's going to do. And at the end of it, it could have gone to 3-3.
yeah,
That's how close it was. They lost momentum. And when you took off Cunha, and they lost that person who was going to stretch them out. They had Embueno, and Embueno comes short, and it's Cunha normally the one who's looking to go long most time. But they took him off, and all of a sudden, what happens is, but two of those defenders go, thank God for that. So they stepped forward 10 yards. So Brighton got back to playing like Brighton after
yeah,
those substitutions, and they got the ball, and all of a sudden, their ball possession in the attacking third is what Brighton's all about. They couldn't do it before because of the
yeah,
movement of Cunha and Embueno and Shesko pushing up. But making those substitutions, they allowed them to step on and under pressure. And then
yeah,
you bring on the young lad, and all of a sudden, young Evans, wow, he gets it in his face, and he hasn't played for quite a while.
yeah,
He didn't really need that. So that was unnecessary, weren't needed. And like you said, one game a week.
yeah,
And that's the problem now in football. There's so many people sitting on the bench. Some managers feel obliged to give them minutes because they just to try and keep them happy. And sometimes, if you're not playing regular and you're sitting there, you might have to go and knock on his door and just say, "I need minutes. I need to play. You need to let me go out and do that." That's how it was before. You didn't just go and give. If you weren't good enough to get in, you weren't good enough. And if you had a problem and you felt you were, you'd go and speak to the manager. But don't go and make changes because you feel you've got to do it to keep everyone happy because you can't keep everyone happy. It's absolutely impossible. And if people are not happy, you tell them the reasons why they're not playing and why they're sitting on the bench, and they've got to accept it or jog on. And that's the way it's got. And they're on about now as well, allowing you to have a six sub as well, so you can put six players on. Don't they understand? Some people like to go home after a game. It's just absolutely incredible. Can you imagine six subs and you're playing Liverpool at Anfield? They'll put an extra 20 minutes on, wouldn't they, if you're in front?
yeah. Not only that, I'm surprised we're not still playing now from our game there, because of how absurd that injury time was. Yeah, I mean, I think that's and maybe it is a thing about the changing of the game. Like the way that the number of substitutes have increased and all that sort of stuff. When you look at a manager who is making decisions based on squad management rather than smelling the flow of a game. And I think that was the thing. I mean, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt because I was once saying, "No, it's 3-0, half an hour left. You probably got enough to see this out." But maybe Brighton had made a few changes as well, and I think that's the difference when you disrupt rhythm on both sides. It gives one team an opportunity to sort of get their way back in. If United had kept their pattern for like maybe another 10 minutes, maybe give them the last 20 minutes instead, I think maybe it might have been a little bit different. But maybe it is a consequence of bigger squads, bigger number of substitutes to make, squad management, like you said. Now that actually smelling the pattern of a game, like Ferguson, he's obviously the master of it. But I mean, sometimes you should see stuff like that. I will say that was the good thing about him that he was pragmatic enough to go, I'll make the change straight away and bring Ugarte on afterwards. But like you said, the problem then becomes once you've already brought off a couple of players, it's who you bring off next to add that pragmatism. And what United had to do, they had to bring Cunha off in order to put another midfielder in. And it creates another problem. Then it gives them another way back in. I don't, it's good to have that kind of problem when you've won a game of football and you've played so well for an hour, and we can sit here and we can go, no, do you know what? United went into that game. They played some of the best football they've played in a long time. They've won the game. We're talking about a little problem, but it's coming a victory. It's the best kind of time to have a problem like that, isn't it? Really, you go like, all right, well, at least we did that. We got through it, and you haven't suffered too badly with the consequences of what it might have been. Really.
Yeah, I mean, but I look at it and I think to myself, it's something I don't know. I mean, Mason Mount's on the bench, and you think to yourself, well, if you're on the bench, you're fit. Not this kind of not fit enough to start or what, whatever. But if you're going to take Shesko off, you bring on Mount, and you get
Yeah.
somebody who's going to look to run beyond, even if it's from midfield, to make them think about it, because it just looked like he decided to sit on it, and it cost you. Because you do think that way. The moment that happens, when you see a team take off a defender and they bring a forward on, you kind of go, oh, hold on a minute. And the fans go, hold on. They're going for it. It's doing something, and it gets into people's heads. So straight away, when you see you bring on you take off your centre forward and you bring on a defensive midfield player, and it just becomes a problem. It just even when I look at Arsenal, what they've done, the way they become yesterday, they become very negative off the back of certain bits. And it's easy just to get in people's heads. The fans realise it, so you could just you just could hear it. The fans are kind of going, "Ooh," because obviously there's a lot of respect for Brighton and what they've achieved and what they do.
Yeah.
So you think, hold a minute, they're getting hold of the ball here, and a young lad, what's his name, Tom Watson, the ex-Sunderland boy.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
Is it Watson? I mean, he come on and he was lively. He was really lively once he got on that ball. And I remember watched him a few times when he played for Sunderland last season, and he was very, very good. So they were, in certain ways, you look at that last bit, it should concern him and it should make him think about, at the end of the day, he's been doing it longer than me because I haven't done it. But as a player, as an ex-player, and I'm looking at it, it was just that little bit that makes you wonder that it just took a little bit of that smile away, that little bit of enjoyment, people just seeing that bit at the end, when it should have been more like maybe a more emphatic 3-0 against a very, very good team and club in Brighton.
Yeah. And we were close enough to that. And I mean, close enough to feel like we were getting there. So hopefully that's something that the manager will deal with moving forward. Robbie says, morning, Robbie, hope you're doing well, mate. He says, isn't the impact the results have on the mood amazing? It really dictates your week. Yeah. Giles says, what a day Old Trafford Stretford End was bouncing. The subs was like flicking a light switch. Yeah. It is, yeah, I felt like they were obliged rather than needed, is what we were saying about squad management, and I completely agree with you there. It is an interesting one that it was 3-0. I mean, I've been in great atmospheres, Lyon, Liverpool in the cup, then they were like something electric about a last minute winner in the cup and everything like that. And it is different, the energy is different, but at 3-0, there was such a nice sort of like, the energy was great in Old Trafford. It was like, oh my God, like for the first time, we're enjoying a game of football. We're playing, actually appreciating the occasion because we're playing so well against a really good team. And for the first time, it felt like, no, we've got a little bit of substance here. It's not a one-off. It feels like we're moving somewhere. And, it's the first time in 4 years, definitely since Ollie, that I've really felt that. I can't believe it's 4 years since Ollie went. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not like harking back to the Ollie days here, but I'm talking like that run of like a moment. I think when we played Newcastle and Ronaldo was back and we sort of believed for a moment that it was all going to go right. There was a moment then, and we played Villarreal in the Champions League, and Ronaldo scored a last minute winner, and it was like it felt like something that was familiar about United, and that's what it felt like for like 5 minutes on Saturday. And I'm not saying that like in a backhanded kind of way, like, oh, it only felt like that 5 minutes and it went away, but it felt like, all right, we're moving there, and who knows for the future. One little one, I won't bother you with this one, Paul, but I'll just make a little comment on this on the difference a goalkeeper can make. Lomans, I thought he was very good again on Saturday. There was that save that he made that didn't go down as a save as well, which came at a crucial time when he sort of did a bit of gamesmanship. I was like, it wasn't me, Gov. I didn't do it. I thought he was very good in the difference that a stable goalkeeper can make when you've not. We're talking about performative referees earlier, performative goalkeepers who were there to just sort of show, like, I don't know, weak goalkeepers. For United to just have, he doesn't have to be the best goalkeeper in the world. For him just to be stable and calm has made an incredible difference to the way that we defend. And I hope that in the next couple of weeks, we've got another clean sheet to talk about where we can really spend a good 10 minutes praising the goalkeeper, because we've done enough here for Mbumo and Cunha. Also, talk about another goalkeeper. I want to talk about a little bit of praise for Harry Gregg, born on this day in 1958, one of the best men in the history of the club. I'm talking like proper men, a proper hero as well. Everyone knows what he did after the Munich disaster, coming in and saving lives as he did, pulling bodies out of the wreckage. But he was also one of the best goalkeepers in the world at the time, transformed the way that United play. And also, I think for the next 20 years or so, and even after he retired for a little bit, he was like United's conscience. Around the Munich disaster, there'd be other people talking about it. Harry wouldn't always talk about the crash, but he always had this sense of conscience around him, even if it was against what the club was saying. Harry would always feel like he was representing all the players who were killed and everything like that. And whether or not he felt that, or he was just sort of taking that responsibility forward, or he saw it as a responsibility to sort of be honest about what he saw and experienced. I was lucky enough to interview Harry as well, and just a great, great man, and one of the best men in United history, born on this day in 1932, I should say. Okay, so we'll talk about the next game, Spurs. Weird season for Spurs. When is it not? This is an interesting one. They changed the manager, Paul. You keep an eye on Spurs because you've got a lot of it around where you are. So help me out with this. They brought in Thomas Frank. Everyone, I think, universally happy with the appointment. And why wouldn't they be? Because Frank probably a step forward from Ange, even though that's obvious now, looking at the way they went for Ange, but Postecoglou. But everyone was universally happy with Frank. There seems to be a little bit of a split in the opinion of him at the moment. Spurs fans not quite sure on him. They've had such a weird start to the season. They won comfortably yesterday at Everton. Very good performance, but they've struggled at home this season. They won the first game, then they've lost to Bournemouth, they lost to Villa, drew with Wolves. All of these games at home. It's a bit of a weird one to work out. What did you make of Spurs under Frank so far?
Well, they're definitely better than what they were previous. You know what you're getting with Thomas Frank, and I like the fella. I've chatted to him on a few occasions because of the London games I do, and I enjoyed watching Brentford. I enjoyed going to Brentford's ground as well, and I like what he does. I just think there's something about him. He's got that personality, and you can see already the team's organised. But I think his big bit will be next summer when he gets the opportunity to go into the marketplace again. And maybe things will be different as well, Wayne, because now, obviously, Mr. Levy's left now, isn't he? He's stepped away from his post. Maybe that will change the way they go and what they spend their money on, the way it's done.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know how strong he was with that, but maybe that will make a difference, because that's one of the biggest problems that I think managers are finding now. They're not allowed to make their own mistakes anymore. They've got these so-called experts who make mistakes, and then the manager one who gets blamed and he loses his job. So I'll wait and see, because I remember his first season when he was at Brentford, and I remember one of his early games was Brentford are at QPR, and they got beaten. They were terrible, and Brentford fans were, because I think, who was it? I think Dean Smith had just left. I think he might have gone to Villa or something like that, and they weren't. Was it Dean Smith? Was it Dean Smith? I can't remember who it was. Was it? I don't know if it was Dean Smith. Yeah, I think it was Dean Smith. And they weren't happy. They weren't happy with his assistant manager taking over, and the rest is history. So the game coming up next weekend, and ironically,
by the way, I've got to say this. We've got the I've said Spurs. It's actually Forest who's the next game. I don't know where I
Mm,
picked that up. I was at the game on Saturday. So
mm.
yeah, Spurs. We'll talk about Spurs a little bit more next week. Let's
Oh,
come into
right.
um, although we've done our background there. So Spurs, obviously, Forest a lot of a mess down there at the moment. They've just changed the manager.
Yeah.
Sean Dyche coming in. Although he did well in his first game, but not so well in his second. What do you make of that? I mean, change. I used to talk with Danny Higginbotham quite a while back when I was working with him, and he told me something that always stuck in my head, which is really he's a great analyst now in the American television. I think he works in Philadelphia still. He said if a team changes its manager twice in a season, they're more likely to be fighting relegation. Like if they go through two changes because it's too much of a change. Now Forest, they're in such a good position last season, and they've made the changes quite early on, and it just seemed like first of all it seemed unnecessary to change as they did do, bring Ange in, and that didn't go well at all. What do you make of what's happened down there?
Well, it's a club run by owner. The club is being bullied by owner. That's the way you look at it. Everyone knows it. Everyone had a general idea at the back end of the season what's happened there with Nuno and with Gibbs White on the pitch, and the whole episode's kind of left a sour taste over the summer, and it's all come out now, isn't it? Really, and really, Sean Dyche. I mean, I wouldn't want to cross him, but I don't think he'd want to cross his owner, to be perfectly honest, in that sense of it. So it's difficult, and I don't. I mean, I get what Danny's saying, but someone like Sean Dyche, you just think to yourself, just his whole manner, you think to yourself that Forest have got a chance with someone like him.
Yeah,
He's gonna keep it very simple. He ain't gonna make it difficult. Um, so it's just how is he going to be able to deal with all those Brazilians he's got? He's got a lot of Brazilians there, hasn't he? They brought a lot
yeah,
over the summer, so I don't think he's fluent in Portuguese or anything, is he, Sean? I don't think he is. Then you look at all his staff and everything as well. It's an interesting one down there.
I'm
I think
imagining.
Everton and Burnley and Everton. Burnley definitely was easier for him on that side of it.
Yeah,
Um, but it's going to be. It's always going to be difficult because it'll be his first home Premier League game, won't it,
yeah,
as a
yeah.
manager? So I mean, yes, I mean an incredible win against a side Porto, who are unbeaten, who have been unbeaten all season. Two penalties. The second one was a little bit dubious to me. I'm not sure about that one, but it was European football, so they're oddest penalties in the world anyway. So, but I mean, there, it's just mad, really. But even I said it when I saw it. It's got, you're saying, God, he couldn't have picked a worse game, could he, by picking Bournemouth away? And you'd think normally everyone would look at why, but we all know why. Bournemouth are decent now. They are
Yeah.
decent. To go there and play there is hard, and it's not really what he needed to have. So he's got enough time. He's got enough time for this game coming up, and he ain't got to worry about raising the players. He knows it's going to be a full house now because it's Manchester United. So
Yeah.
what a great thing for him to go and nick his first win against Manchester United at this moment in time, and Manchester United that are on a high as well. So
Yeah.
everything's going to be pointing in the direction of they're looking for the underdog to come through.
But I mean, conversely though, it does make it. If you want to go and play Forest at any time, this is probably the best time to do it.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely in a way. I mean losing to Bournemouth in the manner which they did as well. Yeah, to go there early on and go and do it. Yeah, but the manager now, every game he gets hard. Every game now, he's getting harder and harder because he's
Yeah,
gone three unbeaten now, three wins on the bounce.
yeah,
Everyone wants to cause an upset now because they want everything plastered back on screen about United on a downfall. So it's a great, at the moment in time it's a good time for everyone out there as a Manchester United fan and feeling good about themselves. Everything. I'm pleased with the manager in certain ways because I do like him
yeah,
and just everything about him. I want him to do well and try and hopefully get to January and maybe do something. Always a good time if you can just get yourself going and do something in January and find somebody who's going to come and make a difference, as I
yeah,
did with Bruno a few years back. There's always something out there that could happen. and we know that at the end of it, it has to be in midfield.
Yeah,
I think it has to be in midfield if he really wants to make a difference and get everyone going and lift people. That is the area. So we're going back to it. I have to look at it, and I believe now that the team is in a much better shape to go to Nottingham Forest and get something. If the team was like anything for going to Notts Forest last season, you was always shaking your head.
yeah, and it tells you a lot about where United were and where they are at the moment, which is really good time. Yeah, fair play to Sean Dyche. And by the way, when I was saying that earlier, I think Danny was talking. He was talking about the rule, not particular circumstances, like the rule of he's changed the managers twice in the season. And normally that's right, because you change one because they're not going well, and then you'll change the second one would probably be March or April, by which time it's probably too late anyway. So the rule was there, and hopefully not, because Forest have been they've been a really good breath of fresh air for the Premier League, and even though the owner's a bit of a megalomaniac, the club itself, we saw stuff like what was happening with Sheffield Wednesday last week. Sometimes you want to see one of those old big clubs come back and sort of start doing well, and Forest is certainly one of those. Just a couple of moments later. By the way, Poser, thank you so much for reminding me there. Stopped Paul mid-track previewing a game that's not happening for 2 weeks, stopping me looking like an idiot. Well, not stopping me looking like an idiot, cutting me off just a little bit of an idiot. Robbie says, off topic, can Paul tell me what watch he's wearing? Is it the Apple Watch Ultra? Yeah. Okay, there we go. There we go. Yeah, I don't know, Robbie. Talk about football. We're not here to talk about watches. Admiral says, wow, good morning, lads. Yeah, good morning to you too. We're about to go, but still, it's a good morning. Jay says, thanks for mentioning Harry Gregg, reminding us of the rich history of United. Look forward, yes, never ever forget the past and those who helped build the institution. Absolutely not. I mean, you'll never get that on this podcast. We always will look forward, but we'll always, with me, I'll always anchor it with some nostalgia, and I'm glad that I've got Paul, one of the best people to be able to do that with. We'll be back next week to review Forest and preview Spurs properly next week. Don't know what came over me there. It is because I was in the ground and someone had said to me, it's Spurs next. And I thought, oh, it's Spurs next. It just stuck in the brain. That'll teach me for trusting what I hear on the terrace at Old Trafford. Most of it not repeatable for a 10 a.m. Monday morning podcast anyway. Anyway, that's it for this week, guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Have a great week, and we'll be back to review Forest and United next week.